Hey guys, I'm Si and welcome to A.C.E Podcast Nation and welcome to episode number 48 of the Andy Campbell Football Show. And we're going to be talking all sorts of football, including some of the latest news, some of the things that have happened in the past week, unfortunately. And of course, we'll be talking about our guest's career. But just before we do that, a couple of plugs. As usual, you can find all the shows that we do in video format at youtube.com/Ace Podcast Nation. Please subscribe. And the audio versions are at all the usual places, podcasting platforms, radio apps. And this week we got some incredible shows coming up. Tomorrow we have, which is Tuesday, we have the new series, The State of Play, which is our cricket podcast with West Indian cricketer Kieran Powell, as well as former Glamorgan cricketer Nyron Norman. That's going to be a semi-regular show as we go through the cricket season as it starts. For tomorrow's show, we previewed the upcoming England and West Indies series. Then Wednesday, we've got the Danny Batten Fight Show with top Cage Warriors prospect Georgian Vucinic as the guest as we talk Saturday's UFC. Friday, we have the Andy Campbell Championship Show live, 7 p.m, where myself and Andy Campbell discuss the championship games of the past week, as well as preview the weekend's fixtures. And then finally, to finish the week, Sunday, we have comedian, actor Leroy Brito in for a chat. And that was a very fun show with my fellow Cardiffian. As usual, I would like to thank Martin Spate and Black Diamond Sports for supporting the show. Black Diamond Sports is a global sports agency representing sports stars around the world. For more information, visit their social media pages, the links of which are in the description below, as well as at the end of the show. And that gets us to the good stuff. Joining me first, of course, is my usual co-host, the goal collector, the speed demon, David Jones's favourite son. He is Middlesbrough's favourite child, Mr. Andy Campbell. How are you, sir?
I'm excellent, mate. Yeah, I'm good. Looking forward to this.
David
Friend
Jones
and
loves
ex-teammate. Yeah, I seen a little smile on Kavs' face there. He knows the story.
Speaking
And of course, our guest this evening is a former Republic of Ireland international, former Sunderland, Stoke City, Wigan, and many other clubs. But of course, the most important, Cardiff City legend, Mr. Graham Kavanagh. How are you, mate?
Good evening. Yeah, good, pal. Yeah, good.
Of course.
All good. No
Of course,
problem. Nothing to complain about here in France. So.
That's it. Of
Just
course, you've been on these. That's it, innit?
I think every time he has a drink, though, Si, he's going to annoy you. Just saying.
Oh, is it? Is it? It's like that, is it? Where's my blurring tool? Quick. Oh, the stream's getting laggy. No, we'll talk about it. I mentioned it on Friday as well. I congratulated the Liverpool team. I don't avoid it. I've been preparing myself for it since Christmas. It's taken that long to get over it.
Exactly.
So what I like to do, what we like to do, Cav, each week is we like to, so people can get a feel for you and your tastes, we have a little thing which we call the Magnificent Seven, which is basically just 7 questions, quick fire answers, and you just give the first thing that comes to mind. So, Graham Kavanagh, the Magnificent Seven. Messi or Ronaldo?
Messi.
Oasis or the Beatles?
Beatles.
Ian Rush or John Aldridge?
Oh.
I think Ian Rush is a better player, but because John Aldridge is Irish.
Bottled it there. Bottled it.
Sat on the fence.
Bottled it.
And the greatest Irishman of all time, not necessarily football.
Michael Collins.
Best roommate?
Curtis Fleming.
And worst trainer?
Worst trainer, there was a few. So I'll go on this one. I'll go with Kavs on this one. And that's not because I'm just saying it because of Cardiff, but Kavs was you pull your hair out with Kavs. He's one of the very, very few players. I tell this to all young kids, very, very few players can train like a bag of crap through the week and perform to the levels he did on Saturday. And the amount of days he missed training, the amount of times he just went through the motions to get to that place. But once Saturday came, he was generally on it. And I think, in fairness, every time we speak or we see each other, he sort of gets reminded, or he reminds us, I think, at the times we'd be in his ear, sort of say, look, when you step up to the next level, how important it is to apply yourself every day, because there's very, very, very few who can do it in the manner and fashion which Kavs did.
And finally, the best thing about being a manager and the worst.
God, best thing about being a manager. I suppose the best thing is having control, and the worst thing is the sleepless nights.
There you go. Not bad at all. So, before we sort of go into your career and focus more on you, what we like to do, Kav, is we just discuss some of the stories of the week and, just the general stuff. And it does feel like there's only one place to start. And, of course, that's Jonathan Woodgate being sacked. No, I'm only joking. We got, Liverpool are champions of England, of the UK, whatever you want to say. They're also I think they're world champions as well, aren't they? And Europe.
World of club champions, yeah. Yeah, I mean, in fairness, I've been a Liverpool fan all my life. So the last, obviously, 30 years have been sporadic, if you want to put it that way. Moments of brilliance and games where, unforgettable. Look at the 2005 European Cup winners, the Cup winner. They beat Milan. I think it was 2005. Yeah, it was 2005. Obviously, a few FA Cup finals in between. But to be honest, since Klopp has come in, the job he's done, the team he's assembled, the style of play, and the tempo of how they play, the quality in the final third, with everybody, there's just 10 outfield players to do it, and even sometimes Alisson sets the attack up. Amazing achievement, and delighted for the club.
Yeah, no, you got to be fair. I think there was a few clubs who could have got Klopp before he went to Liverpool, and I think, obviously one of the biggest ones of those is Manchester United, who I think were interested in him a couple of years previous, and they decided against it. I think they went with David Moyes, which, in hindsight, obviously hindsight's a terrible thing, isn't it? But yeah.
Cav, did you think it was going to was that always going to happen though? Because like being a football fan of a club for so long, you've seen all the success at United, you've seen all the money that Chelsea have had, and other teams have had new stadiums, etc. Were you always confident that Liverpool were going to turn it around?
I'd like to say yes, but I think the truthful answer is no. And the reason I say that is because in the 80s, whilst Liverpool were winning everything, Man United already mainly had their stadium built. We weren't really looking at the stadium and improving Anfield.
Yeah, I know.
And then when 92 came along, the Premier League started, the infrastructure at Man United was really in place. Liverpool's wasn't. You had to redo the Kop, had to do the fire stand, the Cameron Road end. Then they done behind the goal, the Anfield Road end. And then obviously a couple of seasons ago they done the main stand now. I think they're going to redevelop it again. But once they were doing that, every other club was getting an oligarch or was getting a huge financial backer to come in and be able to really fund that. And I think the first time that happened was probably Chelsea with Abramovich. And you start thinking to yourself, we're getting further and further away. And to look at Steven Gerrard and that, who I felt really sorry for, because he's probably the greatest player that's ever played for Liverpool, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I know that Leach will always be classed that, and God knows what player or group of players from this team will be in that category. I'm sure there'll be a few, but Stevie G, you're looking and thinking unfairly, I suppose, that I think he played him, Kavs, didn't he?
Yeah, played him in England, and that's one thing that I always look back on people's career like him, that he deserved the best. He deserved to be recognised as the best. And I'm not being disrespectful here, but when you see someone who's played in a similar position, so Wijnaldum, for example, yes, he's a very good footballer, but he's not in the same mould as a Stevie G. And for Stevie not to win the Premier League is it's upsetting, isn't it? Because you want the best players in the world to have the recognition. Frank Lampard and Stevie and Paul Scholes always get compared, and Scholes has won it loads of times. Frank's won it. Yeah. And Stevie's never got to win it, but it's a shame because I'd like them to be recognised for how good they were, So for me, he's world class.
It's funny what you said there, Si, because in some ways the detriment of Man United has been the decision that was made or helped to be made by Sir Alex Ferguson because he was desperate to bring Moyes in. And I think at that time, if Man United had got Klopp, God knows where the success would have been.
Where he would have built, wouldn't he?
Yeah. And the money he would have been given to be able to do that. But what I've loved about Klopp has been his recruitment, and he's every single player. I can't even really think of one player. You might say Naby Keita, but this season I think he has improved. But every single player he's come into the building, not really with great high expectations. I would have said Mane, he didn't really know what you're going to get from him. Come Southampton. No. Salah had been a flop, a so-called flop by Chelsea. Wijnaldum, I looked at Wijnaldum when I was scouting at West Brom, and I was thinking he doesn't do it right, man. Very good technical footballer, but Klopp's made him into a superstar. And then you look at Jordan Henderson. Jordan Henderson has been outstanding. I played him at Sunderland, and what a lovely lad. Very, very humble. Doesn't drink. His mother's a fitness instructor and a dietitian and stuff, and he's bought into the whole lot of it. And now, for him to be reaping the rewards of the manner and fashion he is it's great to see,
It's a good story that though, the Jordan Henderson one, because I think there was a couple of years ago there was that Liverpool weren't keen on keeping him, and he dug in, he stuck his ground and dug his heels in basically that he was going to stay. And sometimes you make the decisions to stick around, and you know what I mean. He's reaped the rewards really. He's won the Champions League. He lifted the trophy. He's going to lift the trophy again, yet in different circumstances, but he'll still be proud as ever to do so. And he'll go down as a legend because he's the first Liverpool captain in forever. I can remember, to do it. So fair play.
See that as well, Cam. So like we all know what it's like coming through. The players that come through, you break onto the scene, and everybody wants to build you up because everybody wants to see it as the next hope, and is he the future of the club and everything else. I remember moving from Sunderland to Liverpool, and Sir Alex Ferguson came out and said that his running gait wasn't suited to a player that would maintain speed and endurance, and he would be able to carry his body without getting injured for a long career. And to hear that from the top level, the top manager, you can only imagine what it does to a young player. But in fairness to him, he's dug in, he's put two fingers up to the world and says, right, I'm going to prove he's all wrong. I read an article the other day saying that Liverpool were potentially going to sell him on to Fulham in 2012.
Yeah.
And he says, I'm not leaving. I'm not
I'm not going,
Yeah,
it's the same one I read, That's good. It's a great story, though. He's brilliant. It's brilliant.
The other thing as well with Liverpool, mate, is also they haven't, if you look at the players they've signed and the players they've let go arguably of some of their superstars, your Coutinho's, your Suarez. And then if you look at the players they brought in, they're not really like what you would necessarily say superstars. There's some quality players, and I think Robertson's one of the best signings in the last probably 5-10 years in Premier League. But there's no there's good players like Fabinho, excellent, great player, but he's not at the same level as like a Suarez and people like this, and they haven't really brought in anyone at that level. So it does make you wonder whether if Klopp had a bit of extra money to spend, would he have changed his philosophy? I'm interested by that.
I don't know the answer to that, but I look at the Coutinho situation as an example, and nobody would have thought at the time. But obviously the two players, Alisson and Van Dijk, that Liverpool bring in for the money to sell Coutinho. But then Barcelona want to sell Coutinho, and for whatever reason it hasn't worked at Barcelona. He's gone to Bayern Munich, done quite well by all accounts. But Liverpool don't want to take him back, and you're looking at 50 million, 60 million quid. It's a lot of money, but it's not a lot of money to a team that's just won the Premier League, and they don't want to do it. And I don't know what it is there about Klopp and how he sees players and the dynamics of. I mean, I read the thing the other day about his coaching staff and the details that every player needs to have. High intensity running, he needs to cover X amount of grounds, so many meter sprint distance, and how he actually has an eye for players is phenomenal. So he does, like you say. I mean, there's been lots of link with Mbappe, but I can't see Klopp bringing a superstar into the group to upset everyone.
No, I agree.
Would you take him back, Cav? If you were in charge, would you take Coutinho back for that money, 50 million?
I would, yeah, and the reason I would is because I don't think we have that creative type from a midfield position. that can literally open the game up. We obviously have it from the wider areas, but I think Coutinho can play off the wider areas if the two players weren't fit or if they want to be rested. Because I think next season will be tougher because you know that Man City are going to strengthen, you know Man United will strengthen. Chelsea will more likely strengthen because they've had 2 windows and not been able to do anything. And Liverpool are going to lose the players to the African nations. So you're going to need players, and no disrespect to Divock Origi, who has been magnificent for Liverpool, or Shaqiri, or Minamino, but they don't do the same job, and you would find it very difficult anywhere across world football to replace them, the likes of Mane, Salah. But they are going to have to do that for 8 or 10 games in the other side of the January window.
They also have to bring players in as well, don't they? Because I think they've released Lallana, a few other players as well. So it's a big job as well because they need to keep going, push on to another level. Si, have you had a bang to the head, by the way? Because you've been quite complimentary tonight about Liverpool.
I mean, as I've said all season, I just give my honest opinion. Sometimes it'll be this, sometimes it'll be that. Do I like Liverpool? No, I can't stand them. But I'd look very silly if I stood here and said that the current champions of Europe, world champions and Premier League champions, if I sat here and said how rubbish they are, I would look stupid. I'm not going. I look stupid enough as it is. I don't make it worse. I want to hate Klopp, but he's very difficult.
He's likable, isn't he? Likable. Oh yeah. Right, Cav, moving on. Obviously we've seen the managers merry-go-round. You've been a manager yourself. What's your thoughts about managers given time and obviously I'll use Woodgate as a prime example. Was he given time, and should the club have basically gone behind his back and appointed another manager?
Well, there's a load of questions within that one question. So first of all, I'll just give you my experience when I was at Carlisle. We were 6 games in. I was assistant manager, and Greg, we hadn't won a game. We lost actually all 6, and they decided to make a change, and they gave me the job in the interim period for just to see how it goes really. Yeah. So I was caretaker manager, and we won the first 3 games. Drew the 4th. I got given the job. At that particular point, I wasn't in a position of power because you're the first time manager, and you need to remember that a lot of clubs are looking and saying, like, what's the cheapest option? Is it the best option? And what's the cheapest option? But when you go in as a first time manager, first of all, you don't have experience, so that gets labelled against you. But you only get experience from actually being in the position. And what I learned in that first year was more than I've learned over the whole of my career. And simple things like I was made to feel every day when I asked big questions. I remember having a conversation with Paul Jewell. He said to me, "It's a war. Don't see it as every battle you have to win. Pick your battles. Pick the ones that you feel are important enough to win, and really be strong with them. And hopefully you win enough that gives you enough time to stay in the position in the job. Ultimately, the only thing that gives you that is results. But to get results, you need to bring in your own players. And looking at Woody's situation, Woody, from what I'm looking from the outside and what I'm hearing, he didn't necessarily get the chance to pick his own players, and you end up paying the cost. I think at the very start, if you can have them discussions and the club can be honest with you, and you can be honest with them and say, look, I understand where we're at, but you also need to understand that if I don't get what I want, the reason I'm getting the job is because somebody else has failed, and if I don't get what I want, the chances are with the same group of players we're going to have very similar results. But that doesn't always go hand in hand. And as we see him with Klopp's come in, done a particularly good job. He's been given lots of money and lots of time, but he's been very, very clever about how he's done it. And it never sits right with me.
But let me throw something at you, Cav. Then, so when you took over at Carlisle, were you given a remit and an expectation of what was expected from you as a manager?
No. So what happened was we won the first 3 games, drew the 4th, and then I had an interview with the club, and the club wanted to know what my philosophy was. I remember sitting having the interview. Actually, it was quite intimidating. He said, "Right, Cav, there's the floor. You've got 20 minutes to speak about the football club. Now, Cav, you know I can talk, right? But when somebody puts you under pressure,
don't you just?
Yeah.
Did you not sing?
That was at the end when I got the job. No, only kidding. No, but I started talking about what my philosophy was, what I was going to do, how I was going to do it. I needed help. I wanted to bring in my own staff. Wasn't allowed to do that. Understood that from the start. They said they would help me out over the course of time, but that didn't happen. And there was quite a few bits that, once we were in the interview, they were happy for me to say, because essentially they were trying for me to catch myself out 6-8 months down the line. Not necessarily in that way, but they also did that. Hopefully successful, and we went across them problems, but ultimately we did. So it's never like you remember. There's only 92 positions, so you feel I need to get on the ladder, and then when you get on the ladder, the circumstances are never going to be what you want them to be. So it's a real difficult one. Are you ready? You don't know. Are you going to be any good? You don't know. I think there's an awful lot of aspects of what I've done was very, very good. I think if I had the 6 games prior with the points average I had over the 40 games, if I had them over 46, we would have stayed in the league. But that's irrelevant because that's, as I said, that's the reason you're getting the job. But I do feel like, Woody is the example. He's had 12 weeks off with COVID to get 1 game back in, lose and then be sacked. It's the harsh realities of football, unfortunately. But we don't get time anymore. And the second aspect of that is the next generation of players. They're not getting the chance because older managers or more experienced managers are probably thinking, is he ready? If he's not ready and we lose, I'm under pressure. I don't need to put him in. So I'll let somebody else do that down the line. And if unless the kid is really, really exceptional, it definitely becomes more and more difficult to get the opportunity at first team level.
So what I don't understand, what I don't understand is, so every manager which has ever been successful is a manager who's been given time to build a team, a squad, and the club around what his philosophy is, how he wants to play football, and bring in players who are going to fit that philosophy. Not many managers can come in and do that from the off with the players that are there, even at the top clubs. And I just don't understand why clubs are so quick to, just to bin managers off. I understand it's a results business, but ultimately, if you're doing what, say, for instance, Man United have done in the last, since Fergie's left, they've basically just gone from manager to manager, changing the philosophy. He gets rid of some players, brings in his own, then the next manager does the same. It baffles me completely.
The biggest thing at any club, right? The biggest thing at any club, and forget about philosophy, forget about style of play. The game's all about players, and the better the players you have, the better the coach you are, the better the chance you're going to have a success. So it's cheaper to get rid of a manager than it is to get rid of 10 players. So I think most clubs should have an identity. They also should have a philosophy, a club philosophy, and that doesn't get wavered upon. And if they put a director of football in position and he then says, I'm going to liaise with the manager, I'm going to give the manager the players that I feel he's asking me who we can get. Now, you won't always get them players because based on geography, based on finances, based on league position, based on loads of different things, a player will decide where he's going to go. And ultimately, it's going to be about money or success. They're the two things that players want. So, for me, it would be easier if you knew you were going to a club that had an identity, like a Swansea, who for 10 years now, whoever the manager is, they play a certain way. Like Brighton, you come in, they play a certain way. They also understand that the budget isn't going to be massive, but it's going to be competitive. So you need to get the best value for money in the market. And if you do, you're going to buy yourself time, hopefully. And I used to feel as a manager, everyone say, I must feel unbelievable when you win. It actually doesn't. You just feel relief. You literally just, for that week, Kavs, you scored a winner. You come off the pitch, you're buzzing, everyone's celebrating with you. They feel the adrenaline in the dressing room. Everyone's high-fiving each other, hugging, singing, dancing, brilliant. Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, you enjoy it, and then you come out for the following week full of confidence. When you lose as a manager, you go home, you drive home in the car, you don't sleep, you're thinking about it all day Sunday. It's very personal to you. You feel like you're completely isolated and you're on your own, and you're trying to find ways to actually make that solution, bring that solution quicker around. Whereas when you're a player, you feel terrible for 24 hours, 48 hours. As soon as you get back in training Monday, you can put it right with a training session. But as a manager,
totally.
it's hard.
I totally agree. But then on top of it, though, I'm going back to Woody, and I'm a good friend of his, so I'm not being disrespectful to him. I believe he was badly advised at times that he's coming out with this so-called style of play that he wants to play. But if you haven't got the players to implement that style of play, you've got no chance. This high press, attacking with loads of pace, creating chances. You haven't got the personnel to do it. So for me, your identity's got to be realistic to what you've got behind you. You can only play with what you've got. We didn't have a massive recruitment of players to push on with. So for me, I just think it was just badly advised. Started off great with the first game of the season against Luton, but then, the writing was on the wall. Like you said, after COVID, and the first game back was just brutal.
I think the thing with that though, Kavs, as well is, I remember when I got the job at Carlisle, Greg, our previous manager, had fallen out massively with the media, and there was a real sort of disconnect between the club, the manager, and the media. And whenever he did an interview, you could sense there was a bit of animosity on both sides. So I said, right, I'm going to completely do it different. I'm going to be honest, and I'm going to try and give information to the media and let them be part of the journey, so to speak. Give them access where they didn't have access before. And what ends up happening is, and I've seen Woody do this as well, is that you revere yourself because you're trying to be honest and you're trying to be truthful, and then people use it against you in the media. And I got to the stage with me in the media with Carlisle where what I was telling them at the start, I very quickly realised that information was getting leaked, and it was to my detriment. And then the media start coming after you in a different way, and you're trying to build a club, you're trying to build excitement, and you're trying to build an energy that the players will buy into. But like you say, if you don't have the personnel, you're not going to be able to do it. I always remember Lenny Goran said to me, when you get the opportunity to be a manager, make sure you employ somebody behind you who's 15, 20 years older than you, who just has that calm in head just to be able to give it. Take a breather. Don't say what you think. Have a couple of moments to think about what you want to say and how you want to deliver it, because that as well can be to your detriment, and people use it, as I say, use it as a negative in a way that they can then quickly get you out of a job. And we all know what social media, once the snowball starts rolling, it's very, very quick. It's very, very difficult to turn around.
Yeah, you spoke about Lenny there. So I think it's quite fitting, really. We've got a bucket load of Cardiff followers, which is absolutely fantastic for what from where we started. But a big time in your life. Obviously, kids living there, and not just football wise. I mean family. You were really settled, really happy. So tell everybody just how the move came about, just to start off with, really.
Well, I'd moved to Stoke, obviously, so it'd gone quite well at Stoke, and we missed out on the playoffs 3 years, I think it was running. And I was starting to get to the stage with Stoke where what had been promised and what the club were telling us they weren't delivering on, the only really thing that they delivered on was the stadium. When we got to the stadium, there was no money for finances to be able to bring in better players. Albeit we brought in Mike Sheeran left for $2.5 million, and Peter Thorne come in for 500 grand from Swindon. Took Thorne a bit of time to settle, but once he did, me and him built up a very good friendship and relationship and understanding on the pitch. Anyway, when the season came and went, I was entering last year in my contract, and I was expecting they were going to offer me a good contract. But I was getting the feeling that the club behind the scenes were trying to sell me. They were making noises that it was me who wanted to leave. I was getting asked quite a lot in the press as to what you're going to do. And I'm thinking it's a bit odd because I've got a year left in my contract, and I'm hoping the club will offer me one, but they didn't at that point. I just got a phone call literally straight after the game. We played Walsall in the playoffs. I'd scored an absolute worldie, but we ended up getting beaten. Funny story about that actually as well. I was coming off the pitch. I scored a goal. Don't ask me why, but I done this to the fans. Well, the game, we got beaten, and next of all, they invaded the pitch. I started running and I started sprinting. And I'm thinking, I need to make it to this tunnel. Get to the tunnel, and I dive into the tunnel. Coppers are pulling me in. The Walsall fans are pulling me out, trying to knock 7 bells in. I managed to get into the dressing room, but I was lucky. But yeah, got on the bus anyway, and I had a text message. Can you ring this number, please? It's Sam Man. I sat on the bus and I'm thinking, how courtesy I'd never speak to anybody. I gave him a call. He said, look, would you be interested in coming to speak to us? And Cardiff had never really been on the agenda. And no disrespect to Cardiff, and I said this at the time when I went to sign for the club. At the time, Cardiff was a club that had just been promoted from the old 4th division. And I wanted to go and play in the Championship, so Premier League, so it was a bit like, I know I'm capable of doing it, and that's where I want to go. Within speaking to Sam, the next couple of days I spoke to him and Corky. They said, look, we're going to build a team around you. You're going to be the focal point of the team. You're going to be the captain. This is what we expect from you. This is what we want you to deliver as a player. This is what we want you to deliver as a leader. And every part of it was just set up for me to go, right, brilliant. This is where I want to be. I'm going to commit totally to it. I'm going to obviously move my family down. And I'm just going to throw myself into it and see where it takes us. And I remember from the very first day going down thinking, everything Sam had said, he was delivering on. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I think an awful lot of it was smoking daggers at the time. It was or cloaking daggers rather. And you were invested in a dream that he was hoping would be possible, but I don't know if he was going to be able to deliver on it financially. But it was a hell of a ride, and probably the best decision I made in my career.
Yeah, well, I found that side. I found that, Cav, about what you just said there about the dream. You know what I mean? When I first spoke to Corky, you know what I mean? I spoke to Corky. It was I think it was the Wigan game after. Was it the Wigan game after the Leeds game when you got beat 4-0? I think, and I was just about to sign on the Friday. It didn't go through in time, and I think it got beat 4-0, and Corky lost his job. And I spoke to Sam, and you're buying into someone else's dream. I don't think I'd really believed, deep down, that you can achieve that, because it's where you are currently in the pyramid of football. It's going to be tough to get where you think you want to be. So it's and same as you. I bought into someone else's dream, and I love the ride. And I'm so glad that I was given the opportunity to jump on board, not just the football club, but the group of lads, the lifestyle, living in the city. It's so different. Having a daughter born there and things. It played a big part in me growing up and in my life as well.
Yeah, no, it was brilliant. And to be honest, I remember having a chat with Corky when we were trying to sign Peter Thorne, and he said to me, "Who would you sign?" I said, "Listen, you need to go and get Thorny." And he was like, "Really easy?" And I said, "I'm telling you now, you need to go and get him." I was on the phone with Thorny all the time to try and get him. But Thorny was, I think that's why Thorny left Stoke in such a lovely fashion, and I didn't. Because the press had been asking me, well, where are you going to go? And I'm saying, look, I want to go to the Championship, so Premier League. And I ended up at Cardiff, which was then at a rival. And of course, they hated me. Little did they know I was obviously seeking to get Thorny with me. And Thorny was like, he wasn't committing to anything in the press. So obviously he leaves, everybody loves him, and that's great, fair play to him. But I thought it was a little bit different from me, so I still get stick now about it. So
I was going to say, Cav, every now and again I'll just see on your Twitter some Stoke fans giving you a bit of grief. I wanted to ask you though, so obviously Sam Man, it's gone a bit sour in the latter years, but at the time it was a magic time for Cardiff fans, and anyone who kind of denies that, I think, is just kind of focusing on the more recent history, which is understandable. But I wondered what was the most odd or weird thing that you saw Sam do or get you to do? Because there was obviously rumours of eating like sheep's testicles and all these different things as initiations. Was there anything which kind of stands out?
That was actually in my contract. That was a clause in the contract. I had to eat sheep's testicles. I swear, that's the shit. I was literally like, is he for real or what? And it was more or less, if we don't get promoted or whatever. And I was like, but they were the type of mad stuff that he did do. I mean, the Leeds game, everybody obviously knows, but the Leeds game was bonkers. That I'm playing a game against the Premier League leaguers at the time. The stadium, I've never been in an atmosphere like it. It was nasty. It was aggressive. It was hostile. It was intimidating. But it was all against Leeds. It was magnificent for us as players. And if you couldn't play in that atmosphere, then you shouldn't have been playing. Period. But in the game, in the moment, we've scored. I've obviously got the equalisers, 1-1. There's 10 minutes left in the game, whatever it's 5 minutes left in the game. And as we all know, the majority of chairmen are very, very controlled. All right, they're fans, but they they sit in the director's box and they don't move. Sam's walking around the pitch and he's literally antagonising and winding up the Leeds fans like you wouldn't believe. And I'm playing the game thinking, Sam, I don't know if this is doing us any good really. Now, as it turned out, it was, because our fans went berserk and the crescendo noise then went again, which I think gave us more energy, and it was just, it was phenomenal. So to see a chairman commit on a level that he did, to take the mickey out of himself, come down the training ground, race the lads, knowing full well he was going to lose, but it was all about the team spirit. Put sheep in his office. The sheep craps everywhere, and Sam thinks it's hilarious. There was loads of things that he done, but it was all for the benefit of us being united and being collective, and making sure that once we went and set out on that pitch, if there was a fight, we were ready to fight. If they wanted to play football, we'd match them, and ultimately, hopefully, try and outplay them and win games.
Leeds never recovered, I don't think. I think that was the start of their kind of downfall from being
a decline,
Premier League side. Yeah. So just before we move on, I'm going to do some of the live chat questions which people have sent in. So let's have a look what we got. So Big Alan says, what was your favourite goal that you scored for Cardiff City, Cav?
Favourite goal? I could say Leeds, couldn't I? But Leeds was obviously scored, but I'd say probably the Wolves goal. Wolves away, the volley, corner comes in, headed it out, and I hit it. Couldn't hit it any cleaner really, so that's probably my favourite all-time goal.
I missed that one. I wasn't there for that one. My eldest daughter was born that day.
Was that right?
Yeah. Yep. So I remember it for different reasons, Cap.
Yeah, I remember Gary O'Neill made his debut that day. And,
what a player he was, by the way, for Cardiff.
Yeah,
it was exceptional.
Yeah, Darren Williams made his debut as well that day.
Clive Firth asks, will Neil Warnock turn it round for Boro?
Yes, 100%. Win on Thursday, draw on Sunday, safe as houses.
And James Costley says, what was your best moment in a Cardiff City shirt?
Oh, well, there's only one, isn't there? Obviously lifting the trophy. The whole sort of build up to that week. I think it's easy for everybody to, understand what went on after the event. But the week of that build up and the pressure that was building on us as players to perform, no matter where you went, shop, post office, went clothes shopping, anywhere, wherever you went, didn't matter. Everybody seemed to say they had tickets for the game, and everybody wanted us to win, which we wanted to win. Yeah. You have to try and manage that expectation, and you've got to try and manage that on the day where you're going to be exhausted. If that consumes you, you're going to be fatigued very, very quickly. And in fairness, we beat QPR through the course of the season, and I'm thinking it's going to be an easier game than what it actually was. And in all fairness, if you look back in the game, they actually should have beat us.
Yeah, a terrible game.
Poor game of football.
Look, we didn't go into a great form. We didn't go into a great form as well, did we? We didn't run up to the playoffs. We weren't very good. The playoff 2 semi-finals against Bristol City weren't great games. The first game, Thorny scored a header, 1-0. Yeah. We defended really well. We had a good shape, good structure, but we didn't attack the way that we normally attacked. We didn't score goals like we normally score goals. So it was a different Cardiff City probably month, which probably didn't match up to what we'd done previously in the season. You know what I mean? Because we were free scoring. Yeah. You know what I mean? Ernie was just unbelievable that season. But during the playoffs, for the playoff 2 weeks really, because obviously the final dragged on a little bit that week or 10 days or whatever. So it was just it was quite a surreal time really. It was quite you know what I mean?
Well, Lenny, if you remember Lenny, the semi-final, Lenny changed the team and put Willie to the right and played me and Gaz in the middle.
Yeah.
And put Leggy on the left where Alan Mann had been playing. Gaz Ainsworth had been playing. There was quite a few changes. We played 4-3-3 a couple of times. He tried to play you, Ernie and Tony, you, Tony and Willie, Ernie, Tony. And it was just constantly. There was no sort of. It didn't seem like we were building any momentum, but we were just.
Yeah, no consistency. Yeah.
And then I think the game that sort of gave us all belief was the Bristol City game because they'd absolutely battered us.
Yeah.
At home that season, they beat us 3-1. I scored in the game, went 1-0 up, and then we had a disaster. And then they beat us away. And I always remember thinking, if Scott Murray gets the ball, he needs to get hit early. He needs to get nailed early. Do not let them turn and get them run at us, because that will just give them momentum. And in fairness, our game plan in that game was good, although we weren't particularly brilliant in our offensive play. But I thought it was clever by Lenny to do Willie, because he knew Willie would sit inside and he'd protect the midfield area as well, you know. So but to be honest, though, I don't really care. It was
no, exactly.
Like, on the day, and you win, and you're sitting there lifting a trophy, and it's like the stadium's still full, and everyone's bouncing, and the city's bouncing. Yeah, it was magical, absolutely magical.
Yeah, what a night! Last couple of questions from the live chat for now, and then we'll go back to them a bit later on. Gaz wanted to know: did you ever get an offer to sign for West Ham?
No, not as far as I'm aware. No, I never did.
And then what else we got? A random one from Rob Boyle. He says, when you were both playing for Cardiff, did you used to go out clubbing in Cardiff? If so, is there any stories that you could share?
I'll be honest, I was never sober enough to have any stories. All the stories must have been about me, because I was the drunkest man in the world constantly. You know what I mean? So that's probably had a hindrance on my Cardiff career.
To be honest, I think that was actually part of the group. The majority of the players had been brought in from outside Cardiff, if you like. There was obviously a few home boys, but the social aspect of us going out, and we did go out. It generally be a Saturday night, but you didn't. There was nobody sort of left behind. We all looked after each other. There was some states leaving nightclubs and bars.
Yeah,
and
we did it right, didn't we? We'd go out on a Sunday if we didn't have a game on during the week. You know what I mean? So we did it right. Our team morale, our bonding, our togetherness was second to none, and I think that's what dragged us through the bad times, especially the first season when we got beat by Stoke in the playoffs, and then the following year, and even the years after that. I think that the togetherness of Cardiff, the team and the squad was absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, it was. It was great bunch of lads. Great characters. And,
I love that you left that one on.
Yeah, Reece Weston. I don't know who he is.
Has he still got cramp in, or?
Yeah, he's still running down the touchline to celebrate my goal.
Yeah, well, with Trump. Just on the subject of Cardiff, then, Cav, do you they've come back from the resumption now, two wins? Do you think they'll get into the playoffs?
To be honest, I watched them on Saturday. I thought they played particularly well. I mean, I wouldn't say they're a particularly dynamic team, but they seem to be an efficient side. They understand the style of play that Neil wants, or is adapting to, if you like. And they're organised. They don't really concede too many goals. They're physically powerful in the areas that you need to be. I wouldn't say they're, as I say, the prettiest team to watch, but they are effective. And then with the likes of Tomlin, I know he didn't play the weekend, but he come on off the bench. He's always capable of opening the door for you. So yeah, there is a possibility they could get there. I don't know if they've made too late of a run, if you like, but there's definitely a possibility they could make playoffs.
I think the substitutions, you know, what he's making at the minute, you know what I mean? I had Glatzel on the bench, Mendes, Lang, Lee Tomlin. Yeah, when you can bring on players like that, you know what I mean? You've got a chance. You've got a chance, because those three arguably should be starting in the game. We did a show on the Sunday morning of the Cardiff City Leeds United game, Cav, and we said which team we thought should have been out there, and we named all these players to play. You know what I mean? For me, Lee Tomlin should be a starter. He can unlock any defence at the minute. You know what I mean? He's that talented as a player. Glatzel centre forward, leads the line really well. But then he's coming off the bench. He's got a point to prove, and he's scoring more goals now coming off the bench than he has been all season. So for me, whatever Neil Harris is doing, continue, because he's doing a great job at the minute. Because he's had his doubters. You know what I mean? It's been quite.
As well, though, you know, it's like in the games where the team sheet comes in. We'd always go an hour beforehand, but the manager, the assistant manager, you go into the referees room, and you give your team sheet, and they give their team sheet, and we'd be looking at the teams, and referee would be giving us instructions, and I'd be like, he's not playing, I'll get in, happy days. The problem you have with that, though, is when you get to 60 minutes and you haven't pulled away from the team that you're expected to be, next of all, they make 2 or 3 changes. And now you know the big hitters are coming on, the big time players, you like, and they're powerful, they're strong. They can get behind you, they can cause you problems from set pieces, they can get across the front of you and block you. And there's loads of areas of the game where you think physically they can cause us super problems if they get into the right areas. And it becomes then that the team actually sits deeper, and you end up playing into the likes of Cardiff's hands.
Yeah, well, I think with the new rules of 5 subs, yes, there's only 3 times you can do it, but 5 subs with the squad that Cardiff have got, you know what I mean, the Cardiffs, the Leeds, the West Broms, the biggest squads and the best squads, starting to look even better, because you know what I mean. Before you can only bring 3 on, so you've got to do it. You've got to look around and go, which is the best 3 option out of the 7 we've got. Yeah. Now you can bring 5 on, and you're giving half your team basically a rest and a chance to push on.
Yeah, it's interesting. We were speaking off air about some of the teams, and it's amazing how some of the teams have come back, which looks fitter than certain teams look fitter than other teams, and you're wondering, is it sports science? Is it the way they trained? Is it a lack of training? I suppose from a manager's point of view, you don't know what's completely correct, because I certainly wouldn't have been happy in this predicament when we're told, right, you've got 3 weeks, you can only play two bounce games. You need to get them up to a certain level beforehand. And it was always the same at the start of pre-season. You're doing your 6 games pre-season. It wasn't until about the 3rd or the 4th game in that you actually felt fully match fit, where you were really, really up to speed. These players have now got 9 games to finish the season, and they're expected to hit it bang straight away, whilst they're competing for points. And if you're losing confidence, you're losing distance from where you want to be, and the pressure builds and builds.
I think it's helped people like obviously Joe Rawls has had his injury, so Joe's come back in really good form, and he's got himself in good shape. His hip injury looks like it's cleaned up, and I think teams who've had long-term injuries, I'll use Harry Kane for an example in the Premier League. That Spurs were probably going nowhere. You know what I mean? They were getting battered in the Champions League. They were falling away from the Premier League, and then all of a sudden now, Son's back from his broken arm. Harry Kane's back from his hamstring surgery, and all of a sudden you've got your 2 best players on the pitch, and you can push on and kick on. And I think, you know what I mean, it can only you've got to get the positives out of the big negative, you know, and teams like that can afford to do that. And it's a shame for certain clubs who haven't been able to select every player because of contracts and other certain issues. But you know what I mean, Cardiff are getting the rewards from COVID-19 especially.
Yeah, you've got to take advantage of it, you say.
Okay, there's a couple of questions. I just want to go back to one, because I thought it was quite an interesting question, and it kind of went with what we were talking about. Richard asked, before you came to Cardiff, were you worried about our reputation at the time? Obviously, most of all the English clubs absolutely hated Cardiff City.
No, that never even come into my head. It didn't bother me in the slightest. The only thing I was concerned about was what money the club were going to spend, who we're going to bring in. Because no disrespect, the group that I was coming into wasn't yet ready to challenge for promotion. Sam was saying, "Oh, we've got all these great young kids," and Ernie, you know, as he's done at every level he played, he hit the ground running. Kavs was the same, but we didn't have the quality that we knew we needed to get promoted. So I was like, I wanted convincing off Sam that, look, who are we going to sign? Who are the targets? How are they going to make us better? And what areas are you going to strengthen in? And to be honest, once that was answered, it was an easy decision for me.
Yes.
To be honest, I'll go back to another point then. So you said about your contract that if you didn't get promoted, you had to eat sheep's testicles, etc. You should have told me that before the playoff final, because I wouldn't have scored. I would have enjoyed watching you do that.
It was mad, like the stuff the Sam used to put in the contracts for the players. But it was all, as I say, it was just all for team spirit. I mean, he spoke about taking us to London one night. I don't really remember this camp. If we lost, I think it was the last 10 games, I can't remember. He was going to take us to the opera, and I was thinking, oh my God, it's the last thing. If you put me through 3 hours of the opera, I'm definitely winning the game on Saturday. It's no doubt about that, you know what I mean?
And to be fair, and I think that was how charismatic he was, and togetherness. You know what I mean, to get the lads together, because you know what I mean, wherever we went, if it was Sweden in pre-season, if it was, I remember we had a good trip down to Cheshire, didn't we? When we stayed at Mottram Hall, that was a good. You know what I mean. But everywhere we went, we left our little stamp on every little place we went, because it was just, you know what I mean. It was just
in more ways than one, yeah.
Well, yeah, exactly. You know what I mean. It was great time for everybody.
I just wanted to. I know I just said I was going to move on from the live chat, but a load of people just asked pretty much the same question on YouTube and Facebook, and that's about Albert Adomah being forced to go back from his loan period at Cardiff. Neil Harris was not happy bunny. So I don't know if you know the story. Both basically, he's on loan because of the break. The loan's up. Neil Harris thinks that there should have been some sort of extension granted, but it's not the case. The EFL have forced him to go back, which leaves Cardiff a player down, going into not the easiest of situations anyway. What's your thoughts on that? Go on, Ange. We'll start with you, and then we'll go to Cav.
I'm probably not going to be liked, but I just think rules are rules. You know what I mean? For me, you do a loan to the end of the season. You can extend it through the playoffs. You know what I mean? Which is normally May the 25th or whatever. So it's, you know what I mean? It's you've gone past the days of his loan, so he's got to go back. It's not very nice. It's not a very nice thing because potentially he's going to go back to Forest. And I watched them on Sunday against Huddersfield, and I thought, for bits and bobs, they're excellent. You know what I mean? Yeah, well, Sammy Amiobi on one side, him on the other, and stick Joe Lolly a little bit further forward or behind the centre forwards. They'll make them excellent. But that'll be Cardiff's downfall now for me, though, because they'll miss a big player. Yes, Mendes-Lang can come in, but he's been making a difference coming off the bench. But it is just massively unfortunate, and just the times that we're in, that teams are missing players because they're deciding not to play due to contracts. Nottingham Forest are doing the best by themselves, so it's just unlucky, really.
Yeah, as Kelly says there, if it was the other way around, Cardiff would be looking after themselves, not worrying about what Forest are doing. And it's just is what it is. What do you think of the situation, Cav?
I disagree. The reason I disagree is because we're in unusual times. The last 15 weeks we haven't been playing football. Obviously, we come back now. We're back into it 3 or 4 weeks training. We played a week's now in football, 10 days of football, whatever it is. And the rules were in place at the time for a league to be finished at a certain time. But the dynamics of the whole season has changed for me. And if you'd agreed to take him to the end of the season hasn't finished yet. So for me, they should have extended it, regardless of the decision that was made at the time by Forest. They were quite happy for the player to leave. So on the back of him leaving, nobody could foresee whether it was performance, whether it was results, whether it was COVID. That we know we've made a poor decision and we need to bring him back. I understand what Forest are doing, of course they do, but as I say, because of the way the rule change has been and the quickness in which they want to get the league over, I think the same set of rules should have applied and they should have given to the end of the season.
Part of me agrees with you, Cav, but then part of me agrees that should go for every other player as well, though. You know what I mean? That we've got players who are deciding not to play. You're contracted for this season, you know what I mean? So if you're contracted for this season, then you finish this season potentially, you know what I mean? So it's a massive kind of worms, and for me, UEFA probably should have stepped in at the start, and every league should have finished or void or whatever. So and contracts should have been the same, and it's just every country's done something different. English football's done something different. Scottish football's done something different. It's a massive kind of worms, and hopefully we never have to go through any of this again if it's for this or for something else. Because I just think it was handled really badly from start to finish, and it is what it is. Everyone's got their own opinion. Like John, listen, I fully agree. I would love to see Albert stay at Cardiff City Football Club, but at the same time, I would love to see Lyle Taylor still be playing for Charlton Athletic. So it's the same thing.
But see, I would disagree with that. I'll tell you why. If the club wanted the players to stay, extend their contracts. Not by a month, but by another year, and offer the player the contract. Because the way the player is seen is, if I play in these 4 weeks and I get injured, and it's a bad injury, especially with the times we're in, clubs are going to be spending less money. They're going to be offering lower contracts, lesser length of contracts. So if you value me that much, offer me extended contract, and don't extend it by a month, because at the end of the day, you're looking after you. You're not actually looking after me, the player. I totally
agree.
And numerous of clubs, you know what I mean?
I totally agree. But then the flip side is Nottingham Forest then are looking after their own. They're looking after their own, then, aren't they? So they're bringing their own player back and look after themselves. So we can't.
I appreciate that. But what I'm saying is, I think it's 2 different points. What I'm saying is, I think because of the regulations, and this is where it's muddied the waters for me completely. I understand it financially because the EFL haven't been able to supply the money to give League 1 and League 2 clubs the COVID testing, and the Championship clubs have paid for themselves. That's why they're able to come back and play games.
Yeah.
But to have a set of rules in the EFL for the Championship and not apply that to League 1 and League 2, that's just bonkers. But they should have just owned it and said, right, I tell you what, we're going to make the decision. And if your loan needs to be extended, well then you can't go back and play for your previous club, because that wouldn't have happened in a normal season anyway.
No, I totally agree.
And now you're asking it to happen. So there's double standards across the board, I think, for both sides. But
I agree.
I get where you come. I see your point.
I agree, but I see it from we've had this debate show on show, and I think it's the wording of a contract. The wording of a contract is your contract finishes on a day. You know what I mean? Likewise, your loan finishes on a date. The wording should be that you've loaned till the end of the season. That's not what the wording says in the contract. So the small print is, and the leagues have got no leg to stand on. You know what I mean? The league's stuck in the middle of a wrangle between Cardiff City and Nottingham Forest. The player doesn't know what he's doing because he just wants to play. Is he going to play at Forest? Probably not. Is he going to play at Cardiff? He is playing. So you know what I mean? He's the one I feel sorry for. You know, because he's going to go back because Forest see him as a threat to their promotion, their playoffs, and.
I was going to ask that. Is the only reason that Forest are enforcing having him back to try and weaken Cardiff's playoff push? It's 100%, isn't it? And I think
there's both as well, say, isn't it? Because he's a good enough footballer that he will get in their squad. And could he score big goal in the playoff semi-final, final? You know what I mean? To put him
off
through
the bench, maybe.
Of course he could, you know, because he is that good of a footballer, you know, on his day. So you know, what I mean, the Cavs said about muddy waters. It's extremely muddy, but they've made this mud themselves by creating different standards for League 2, League 1, Championship, Premier League. You know what I mean? For me, everyone sings the same sheet.
My argument to that would be, if they've done that because they see him as a player that can potentially make them better in the playoffs, why loan him out to start with?
Yeah. No, I agree. He wasn't playing. He wasn't playing at the time. He wasn't playing when they let him go. So
they didn't deem him good enough. Cardiff have resurrected his career, given him a platform to play on.
Yeah.
He's going to end doing well. COVID has happened, unfortunately, and now they've thought, well, no, actually he is playing quite well. He's actually better than what we thought. Or you know what, let's bring him back because that will hamper another team's chances, and it might help us. So they've used the rules to their advantage.
Yeah, I think. Sorry, Sam. I think
I was just going to say. Go on, mate. Let me just get this in quick. Sorry. I was just going to say. Do you know if the EFL, when they announced that all the games are coming back, said right, because we insist that the season's got to be finished, which is obviously a whole nother debate like we've talked about that FIFA should have stepped in, but whatever. Should the EFL, the Premier League, whoever, all these different leagues, even FIFA said any loan deals till the end of the season will be till the end of the season, whether that end of the season is in June or whether that's in September or next year. Every single loan deal that says end of the season,
they're the only dates. They're the only governing body. They're the only really governing body who can make that happen. Nobody else, the EFL can't really do that because.
But FIFA could, couldn't they? Because they could say the whole world of football, every loan deal that's till the end of the year is now being enforced. But that would mean FIFA would have to actually do something useful, and we all.
I agree with Richard Sullivan's put in the chat that he thinks Cardiff is still strong without him. You've got White, Mendes Lang, Josh Murphy. Well, I'm not sure what's going on with Josh Murphy, but you've still got him on the books. So for me, you've still got wide men who can deliver just as much, if not more. You know what I mean? I've been a massive fan of White. I think he's been outstanding. The games that I've seen him live, really, really impressed, and hopefully he can bring that form back.
Kavs, not the problem you have, but we all know as good as certain players are in the league, it takes a certain mindset and character when you go into the playoffs because the pressure builds very, very quickly. Yeah. Adomah's been there and done it with Middlesbrough. He's had a long spell then with Forest, and now he's come in and hit the ground running really with Cardiff. And you miss that experience, that calmness. I've been there, I've done it, I know how to do it. Just follow me. You know, I'm okay in my position, and I know how to help us win games. So, you know, it is a disadvantage that he's not there for me, 100%.
Oh yeah, it'll be a loss, but you know what I mean. It's up to the players to step up to the players. Give somebody an opportunity to go and play.
Okay, so and did you want to do that now or?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Yeah, go on. You go ahead, then, mate.
So obviously we got a sponsor from Darren from Bespoke. So I'd just like to tell you a little bit about it. So Bespoke Financial, new sponsor of the show, number one protection firm in the UK. They give you life insurance, critical illness insurance, income protection, mortgage cover, and sports cover, which I've got probably all of them through Darren and his company. So if anybody wants to get in touch, the details are on at the end of the show. You know what I mean? It helps you if you're playing football professionally, semi-professionally. If you get injured, you're covered as well. So it's something really handy to have.
Spot on, mate. Spot on. And welcome them on board. And obviously happy to have them supporting the show alongside Black Diamond Sports and all the people who watch every week and listen every week, of course. So, Cav, one of the things which really interests me about the early part of your career, the very, very start, is obviously you started with Home Farm, which is over in Ireland, I believe, isn't it?
Yeah.
They churned out some unbelievable talent and names in the football world. But, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's quite a small place, isn't it? Like a small club and a small academy, is it, or a club? I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's a schoolboy club. Essentially, it has one main pitch, and it's got about 4 or 5 pitches out the back, which are training pitches, and then it has a gravel pitch that you can use 24/7, 365 days of the year. But it was just a club that great people in it, really well run. Had Ray Tracy as the manager, and a fella called Brendan Menton, Brendan was the chairman. He'd been involved in Irish schoolboy football for years and years and years, and he knew everything about the game. And obviously, my thoughts on moving there was a majority of the kids who went to England. I knew from, I'd say probably about 4 or 5, I want to be a footballer, and to be a footballer, the only place you could do that was in England. So I always knew that the chance came around, I was moving across the water, and there was no alternative for me. So I was leaving my family, me friends, all that carry on. But to get that, you needed to be spotted, and the scouts were all coming to Home Farm. So I went to Home Farm, and I ended up joining this team that were unbeaten for, I think it was 9-10 years, in the Guinness Book of Records. Anyway, we had a phenomenal team. Majority of the players went away to England. The 2 players who made it were me and Gary Kelly. And funny enough, we were the 2 players that came later into the group. I came under 13. Gaz came under 16, I think it was. But it was very, very. It was a schoolboy club that was run professionally in the sense of the respect, discipline, dedication, all the basics you need to be a footballer were instilled into you. Obviously along with passion, drive, ability, talent, they all need to be there anyway. But it was just a really well run club, and there used to be a bar. You go into the bar afterwards, and all the teams were on the wall of the bar with all the ex players, and as you'd named a few. Ronnie Whelan was a player I loved, another midfield player. So Ronnie had come across to England, gone to Liverpool, had an unbelievable career. And that was my journey. That was the club I went to, and I knew if I played well, I'd get scouts looking at me.
Tell people, Cav, about the Milk Cup. How important is the Milk Cup for a young player?
Unbelievable. Well, the Milk Cup was in its infancy really when we started. I went up to the Milk Cup under 14, but I couldn't actually play. I had a fight with this lad, and brought me hand on his head.
Doesn't sound like you.
No, yeah. I had a fight with this lad, brought me hand on his head. My hand was in plaster, and they wouldn't let me play in the tournament. So I was raging. So 2 years later, we went back on the 16, and that was our group at the time was Middlesbrough. There was a local team in it. There was Liverpool, Corinthians, I think, were the team in it from Brazil. The teams have come from everywhere, and literally on the sideline you'd be stood and there'd be every jacket you could think of. Liverpool, Man United, Man City, all the scouts were lined up, and they were looking for the best talent, and amazing.
So for people who don't know, the Milk Cup is probably, well, for me it was the biggest and best junior tournament in the world. It was run in Ireland. Every club in the world. Middlesbrough, Man United is the best clubs in England, Scotland. Cav just said there, Brazilian teams. You know what I mean? National teams would go, and it would just be the best of the best. You'd go there for a week. You'd have the first couple of days. You'd play against everybody, and then you'd be split into the winners group and then the losers group. So everyone would keep playing, and it would just be the best tournament, the best time of your young life, because you were mingling as a young player with the rest of your group. So you're getting on everybody else, and like Cav said there, you get an opportunity to impress, because you know what I mean. Not just your own club. Every scout under the sun knew who you were, and it was just a really happy time just to go and enjoy your football.
Cavs, what was also great about it, and I never really understood this at the time, was you were playing against the South American teams who were playing a different type of football. They were rolling around in a different type of way. They were receiving the ball in different ways. They had a different skill set. And the education you were gaining from just playing against them was phenomenal. And at that young age, 14, 15, 16, 17, to gain all that sort of exposure and experience to them, it really sort of stands you in good stead down the line. And as we've seen in the Premier League, which is then filtered into the Championship, all the different nationalities that we have, and the way the game's changed, and the dynamics of the game, a lot of the foreigners have brought a huge difference to the style in which we play, and it's improved their game massively.
Well, I think, I remember we played FC Porto, and I think that was my first real thought process of, I looked at their team, they were massive, big, strong, you know what I mean? I don't think any of their players were Portuguese. They had Brazilians, Argentinians, Russians, Italians, Spanish, and you know what I mean? So foreigners haven't just come into the Premier League or you know what I mean? They've been worldwide for that long, and you know what I mean? I'm going back, I'm 41 now, so you know what I mean? Probably 20, 25, 26 years ago, you know? So it's a hell of a long time, but it just shows how strong football is and was for generations now. And it's just, you know what I mean? It's come to a head that everyone now wants to play in the best leagues, and the Premier League's a place to be because it's a business, there's money, you know what I mean? There's teams winning Champions Leagues, but you know what I mean? For me, the best time of my life, you know what I mean, growing up as a player was Milk Cup. It was great. So Cav, you mentioned there then about scouts, about people watching you. You know what I mean? You mentioned all these big clubs then. So why Middlesbrough? So what did Ron Bone say to Cav to get him to come to Middlesbrough?
What did Ron say to me? Well, funny enough, obviously there's all this illegal tapping up now and all this carry on.
Ron didn't do anything illegal, surely.
No, Ron bowled into our dressing room and went, you can I have a word? And I'm like, yeah, and he went, I want you to come to Middlesbrough. And I was like, okay, I was buzzing, I was delighted. Funny thing in Ireland was, though, and I suppose this is across the world, but a lot of people are afraid to make decisions, and they wait for somebody else to make a decision before they make their decision. So Ron was the first to show me some love, if you like, to show me that he really fancied me as a player, and he was prepared to put his money where his mouth was and bring me over. And from coming over, I was over here 10 days, I think it was. Played 3 games, scored in 2 of the games, scored 2 in one game, scored in another game, and played really well in the 3rd game. Ron said, look, I want to sign you. And I went back to Ireland with my head set on signing for Middlesbrough. Played for Ireland against Northern Ireland. Went around the goalkeeper, put the ball into the net, and as I'd done it, the centre half came in, smashed me, and ripping the ligaments on the inside. So I was out for 4 months. In the meantime, Liverpool, Leeds, and Man City came in for me. I'm a big Liverpool fan. I'm thinking, right, they just won the league, 1990. Will I go? Will I not go? And my head was saying Middlesbrough's a club for you because it's the club that you're going to get a chance at. Are you going to get a chance at Liverpool with John Barnes, Ronnie Whelan, all these players? They just signed Jamie Redknapp as well. My mate who played at home farm with a fellow called Mark Kenny, he was there. So I thought Middlesbrough's a club I want to go to. They've got a great history of bringing players through, and it'll be an education for me, and it certainly was. So
obviously being a professional footballer is... you live in £1 million house, you drive all these cars. So you went to Middlesbrough and you lived where?
I lived in a place called the Mayo Hotel, which was
with every other player under the sun.
Every other player under the sun, yeah. And we had it was brilliant. It was a family run digs. In fairness, Eleanor and John, who were like mother and father to all of us, all the players. I was the very first player over at the time. From Ireland. Well, actually, tell you, there was 2 lads called Mick Devine and Stephen Napier. But they were about to be released, and I was going to spend the next sort of year on my own, if you like. And that transition from a 15, 16-year-old kid coming over to England to a new part of the world, have to make friends, have to adapt to a football environment which everybody thinks is easy, but it's like Callum now, my son, is about to do it. And he's saying, "Oh, Dad, I'll be able to do this after training." I says, "I guarantee you'll be coming in, you'll sit on the sofa, you'll fall asleep, you'll wake up, you'll eat, you'll go back to bed, you'll sleep." And adapting that lifestyle sounds easy, but it isn't. It was tough. It was a tough adaptation. And then not having a family to be able to support you, because they were at home. So it does build resilience and a toughness that I suppose you take with you for the rest of your life. But it was a big learning curve.
That was my next question, Cav. Really, that did it help living with everybody else? Because obviously you lived with obviously I think I remember that I know Salif was there and Keith O'Halloran and I'm sure Moosey was there at the time and other players as well. So did that help you all, not just yourself, settle into the area? I'm guessing you socialised together. You went to training together. Instead of just missing family.
It did help massively, but it was also a hindrance. So as an example of that, we're all different. We're all learning our trade. We're all learning how to be professionals. Likewise, you can be influenced, and if one was going out, it generally meant that everyone was going out, and if everyone went out, it meant instead of one being in trouble, everybody was in trouble. But you were learning as you were going, but likewise, you had to support. They were like brothers to you. Again, like Salif, comes over, doesn't speak a word of English. I end up teaching how to speak English. Don't know how I did. And the only thing we had in common was Chris Waddle. He loved Chris Waddle. I had a video of him. So I used to tell him words, and he ended up speaking with an Irish accent to start. And we're obviously very close still to this day. So it's it was great experience.
And obviously you made your debut for Middlesbrough. You obviously played at Ayresome Park, which was obviously something that I remember fondly watching you as a young player, because I watched all the games at Ayresome Park before they went to Riverside. So tell us about your early memories of playing at Ayresome Park.
Bit similar to Indian Park, really.
I thought so. Yeah.
Very similar in grounds. Pitch was always lovely. Generally nice pitch. Fans were on top of the pitch. You had the far side of the chicken run. If you weren't playing well, they let you know about it, and you got absolutely battered. Obviously, at the Holgate end, which the home fans would be in, and there was just, I remember being a kid, first coming over and looking at the likes of Barry Slade and jumping on the fence. Paul Wilson then came, and the likes of John Hendry, the fans really bought into and loved, and then they became part of the furniture, and the fans really, really took to them as one of their own, even though they weren't. And that was something that really stuck with me with the way the Middlesbrough fans were. So you obviously were dying to make a debut. I was fortunate enough I made in the Premier League, played away at Forest, and then made my home debut against Sheffield Wednesday. And it was a roller coaster of a season. It was we ended up getting relegated, but I played 8-10 games, whatever it was, and I was off and running. But then you had the transition. Then we moved to the stadium with Brian Robson, and the whole club just changed. You were part of it, obviously, but to have the likes of Janino, Emerson, Ravanelli, Branco, and then the names that followed afterwards, it was a who's who of football, and Middlesbrough were setting the trend for these magnificent world stars to come on board, and then to be able to train with them and see how they were, and see how they were as people, how they carried themselves, how professional they were, but also how humble they were. It was brilliant.
Yeah, we touched on it earlier. Obviously, you moved to Stoke City. And Si mentioned it earlier on about social media and things, and the way that Stoke City fans have never really forgiven you. But obviously Thorny got like a bit of a free ride. So do you think it's deserved, the stick that you get from football supporters, especially Stoke City supporters, about the way you left?
In an ideal world, I'd love them all to know the real story, but it's not. They support their team. They're not gonna take my version of events now. Did I want to leave? Potentially yes, because as I said earlier, we didn't feel the club had what they'd said and promised and delivered. Sorry, what they said they wouldn't deliver and they hadn't done. And the fact then they didn't show me any commitment to want to keep me, I thought, well, okay, well then let's explore what's out there, because it's one career. It's coming to an end. They seen it as a bit of money thing, and I was a greedy so. So that's their prerogative. It's water off ducks back to me, to be honest. I really enjoyed my time at Stoke. It was a great club. It is a great club. It's got very good fans. And in fairness, whenever I go back, they're always good as gold to me. It's just the keyboard warriors who want to say what they want to say. I don't think too many of them are prepared to say it to my face, you know.
There's a few nice ones because I do remember there was a young lady who was very quite complimentary of what you achieved at Stoke City. Sorry, and I'm sure she was going to watch the show tonight. So hopefully she did, which is obviously great for us and great for you. But no, listen, you know what I mean. I asked that question because you know what I mean. For me, as a ex-teammate, as a friend, you know what I mean. When I see people saying negative things and saying things about things that they don't really know about, you know, that football is an industry where they don't really know what goes on behind the scenes. They don't really know the conversations what I had between 2 people or 3 people behind closed doors, and they just see people moving to certain clubs X, Y, and Z, and see it as that you've betrayed certain clubs, certain teams, and it couldn't be further from the truth. And sometimes in an ideal world, you'd move differently, but it's not an ideal world.
The way I see it now is I played with an awful lot of players throughout my career, and generally the ones who get stick were the good players. Some of the players who come back to other clubs and were absolutely dog shit, and you're like, are they getting a standing ovation? I'm thinking, that's incredible. That I've just made the club X amount of pounds, and I'm going taking all the stick. So it's like, so it doesn't. It's a compliment. It's a backhanded compliment to whoever you look at it. And the fact that I left meant that they actually it bothered them. So they would have rather stayed. So it obviously tells I was doing something right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Cav, just on this kind of subject of leaving, a few people have asked in the live chat as well, and it was something which I was going to ask you about, so I suppose it all fits together nicely. When you left Cardiff, obviously Cardiff fans were disappointed that you left. Was that a point where you wanted to make that move to a Premier League club? But were Wigan in the Premier League then? I think they were, weren't they?
No,
they weren't, were they?
Yeah, I got promoted. Got promoted to the Premier League.
Yeah, you got.
We got promoted. Yeah. So that wasn't what happened. I'll tell you exactly what happened. I've told the story before, but this is actually how it played out. We went in on the Monday, and we were supposed to have been paid on the Friday. And because I was the captain, I was the spokesperson for the players. So I went to see Jason Turner, who was the secretary at the time. And there was lads having mortgages, you know, there was childcare, and there was car repayments, there was all sorts. So players quite rightly wanted to know when we were getting paid. So I went to see Jason. Jason said, no, look, it's been a banking error, which obviously that was the word from Sam, but I didn't know that. So I went back into the dressing room and I said, look, I've been reassured everything's fine. We're going to get paid tomorrow or late this afternoon. So late this afternoon came and went. We didn't get paid. The Tuesday came and we hadn't been paid. And I said, look, Jason, if this is bigger or more serious than what you know, I need to know, because there's players panicking. And all the bullshit in the world isn't going to help the situation, so we need to address it. So he then called Sam, and Sam said, look, there's been a slight issue, but it's not a problem. We've got an investor who's going to pay to cover the wages for the next 3 months. So I said, right, fair enough. So that was the end of it. So we were going to be paid, I think it was on a Friday. And we had the Wednesday off. I was in Jazzy Jungle with the kids up in Landaff, I think it was. And I'm just playing with Megan and Colin. And I get a phone call from Lenny. He says, Cav, I need to see you first thing in the morning. So I said, everything all right? He went, look, he said, I hate to say this to you, but basically, we need to sell it. The investment has fallen through. We've had an inquiry because word has got out that the club is in financial difficulty. And the club that's made the best offer has been Wigan. Bear in mind, I didn't have a clue that the club were in this position. I had never dreamt of leaving the club. I was doing my badges at the club, thinking I was going to potentially retire at the club and have a future, whether it be on the coaching staff or in the academy or wherever it would be. And that was my sort of thought process. Whilst also thinking that we still had a chance of getting promoted with the club and me being captain, and that would have been magnificent. So anyway, that was my thought process. So I get in to see Lenny on the Thursday morning, and Lenny says, look, we've got the investor now, it's not happening, the deal is off. So that was fine. I went and trained, came back in the afternoon, nothing was said, didn't even get me boots because obviously I didn't know anything about it. And Lenny rings me on Thursday night, the deal is happening, you're going to Wigan. You need to go up there tomorrow and discuss personal terms. And I'm thinking, we all know transfers need to be signed by 12 o'clock. So I'm like, how am I going to go up there? So I drive, what I do, I have to go to the club and get my boots. So I get to the club about 7:30, get my boots, say goodbye to one or two people who were there. Surreal moment, because I'm still thinking, is this actually going to happen? Because it's now fallen through twice. I've not got any time to think. Wigan are playing, Ipswich was the next day, and we were due to play Sheffield United. The lads had obviously heard through the week that I was potentially moving, but then the deal was dead. And I remember James Collins wrote on the board in the physio room, please don't go, Cav. You're our saviour, blah, blah, blah. I was giving all this taking a mickey. And anyway, on the Friday, literally, my helicopters come to pick you up. And that was literally as quickly as it happened. And the funny part of it was, my missus drove me to the helipad in Cardiff with my daughter. And I had literally just left the club to get my boots. And I'm coming out of the club, I'm, upset and what have you. And then I get onto a helicopter on my own. I'm shitting myself getting onto this helicopter because flying anyway. And I'm waving at Ross and Megan on the ground. I'm like, he's going to see us, I'm thinking. And then I have now prepared for the game tomorrow. I had no clue I was even going to be playing for it. So that was how mad it was. Honestly, it was bonkers. So a weird win for a week.
Was it, did you feel let down by the club and by the hierarchy at the club to be treated like that after the years of quality service that you'd given? You'd given a lot to Cardiff, and then you did a very emotional interview at the time as well, just after you left.
No, to be honest, and I'll tell you why I didn't. I was 20, I think it was 28 or 29. I think it was 29. And by that stage, having been at Middlesbrough, having done the transfer to Stoke, having then been sold in the manner and fashion it was, to then move to Cardiff, I very quickly became clear this was a business. And you understand that. I was at the age where I knew the club needed the money, they needed to sell an asset. I was an asset that they deemed sellable, and therefore, bang, you're done. This isn't personal, but if we could choose to keep you, we would. If we could choose to give you a new contract, we would, but they weren't in that position. So there was no point in me crying over spilt milk. The advantage of that for me was, if they had forced me to go to a club that I didn't want to go to, and the reason I wanted to go to Wigan was because they were challenging to get into the Premier League, and that in itself then became a focus from, right, okay, you can sit and cry over it and wallow in it, or you can actually face a new challenge and see if you can get to the Premier League. Chase the dream that you've been talking about for the last 5 or 6 years again, and throw yourself into it, and that's what I did. So I didn't have any animosity towards anybody. In fact, when my career came to the end, it was actually the complete opposite, because it actually worked in my favour. But it didn't feel like that for that week. I felt like I was a piece of meat. I was getting pulled for a decision that wasn't my choice. It was somebody else's choice, and I just happened to be part of it. But as I say, if that decision had to be to, let's say you're going to, I don't know, let's say we use a club like Charlton, who had been struggling, or if they had been struggling, let's say, as they are now, and you're getting sold, and you're thinking, well, we can now jump into League One, but if I don't go, the peril that's going to leave the club in is going to be massive, and financially, the club's probably going to go into administration and then could fold. So you don't want to have that over your head either. So there was an awful lot going on in your head, but you just have to, as I say, just to swallow it and go on it.
Yeah, I know. As a Cardiff fan, that was the very disappointing period for me. Like I saw the best players leaving. We clearly needed the money. It felt a bit like we'd been sold a dream or sold a ticket, and it was starting to fall apart. And it did financially and off the pitch.
I think as a player though, Si, obviously we looked up to Cav. He played a big part in our changing room. Led us really well on and off the pitch. Not just being our captain. He led us into conversations like you said about when we weren't getting paid for all those months properly. He'd be our spokesperson and things. So for someone of that stature to leave a group, left us a big hole to fill. The young players looked up to him. That we weren't just teammates. We were friends. We had a good solid group. And when you see one of the big players leave, and then all of a sudden different players leave. You can see the fractions and the gap starting to widen then, and you just think, you know what I mean, it's not the same place as it was. You know what I mean, you start hearing whispers, you see people's interviews, and yes, they get twisted, and it's just, yes, it wasn't the same place once obviously Cav had left, and then other players started to go as well, because Cav said it there, he said about being an asset, and you know what I mean, I think other players and other teams then started swarming around, looking at assets and looking at people, and just swooped in and took everything they could.
Oh yeah, they certainly did. Okay, so just to finish off the show, then we'll just go through some of the questions which people have sent in. Jamie Perham asked, "How did you feel after scoring that screamer against Leeds in the FA Cup?"
Yeah, but euphoric, isn't it? I mean, I said 3 weeks beforehand that I was going to score. Stayed out every day practicing free kicks with Neil Alexander, and then to get it and to actually produce it, it was special. Yeah, it was a great feeling.
How did you feel, Cav, when you seen the team? You know, when you seen Leeds United's team line up in the, you know what I mean. You said that you go in the referee's changing room and get the teams with obviously assistant manager and stuff. So when you looked at their team and seen all the world class players they had, because at the time they were full of world class players, by the way. So how did you feel when you seen their team?
I didn't really feel anything. I just thought, I've been looking forward to this for 3 weeks now. I feel like I'm able to compete on this stage. I want to showcase what I'm about, and here I am. And let's bring it on. That was it. It wasn't. I remember the one thing I do remember was when I was at Middlesbrough, a young kid called Rio Ferdinand, who was 13 or 14. He came to the digs to stay with us. He was on trial for 2 weeks.
Came on trial, yeah.
And
came on trial as a centre forward as well, by the way.
Yeah, no, he was a centre midfielder. He could play everywhere. He
played a football game with me. Yeah,
he was like a Rolls Royce, honestly. But the club wanted to sign him, but obviously he ended up signing for West Ham. But he never spoke to me, and I remember thinking that's fine. But I remember thinking how big he was in comparison to what he had been as a kid. And I was stood beside him in the tunnel, and there's a photograph of us on the pitch with John Charles before the game. And I'm trying to look as big as I possibly can. He's just towering over me, you know what I mean? So,
I love it.
Yeah.
Jack Taylor asked, who was the best player you played with at Cardiff?
Best player I played with at Cardiff? Wow, that's a tough question.
So many good ones, isn't there?
I'll tell you, he was a very underrated player, and I don't think he ever got the credit he deserved. But Gaz Wally was a good player.
Yeah, Gaz was technically very good. Yeah, he was.
Gaz Wally never ever gave the ball away.
Yeah.
Gary O'Neill was another good player.
He was.
Willie Bowler was a very good player.
Jason Kumas. We were full of inundated with players for me. But you're in that bracket as well, Cav. You know what I mean? You don't get the credit sometimes, because when people ask you the question, you obviously can't name yourself and things. And this is it's a question I've got for you, Cav, and it's the question I asked Gabs and I asked Ernie as well when they had both of those on the show. That obviously when you went to play for Ireland and you went away and you played with all these world class players, you know what I mean, Robbie Keane and Roy Keane and Gaz Kelly, for example. When you came back to Cardiff, was it how hard was it then to come back and bring yourself down to a different level of football, so to speak? And that's not being disrespectful to the players that you're coming back to, but you were at another level, like Gabs and Ernie and all them were at another level.
No, it was never ever an issue. It was like, for me, it was a little bit the opposite. The lads all give me stick about it now, like, but I see the likes of Robbie Keane and whatever, and the lads are going, "I still eat a fruit salad and all this." Roy used to come into the squad, Roy Keane, and every summer he used to go away to Italy, and he would go to this place where he used to fast, and he'd cut weight, and he'd eat certain types of foods and how he would eat them and when he would eat them and what he would eat them with and certain things to speed up some tablets and all that. And I used to just sit for hours and just pick his brain. So when he used to come out of the Irish squad, your training was a certain level and it was unbelievable. The ball was popping and you had to be switched on mentally. You had to know where everyone was. You'd be aware of your spaces, your distances, and your quality had to be good. And or else you would have embarrassed yourself. But I remember coming back to Cardiff, Wigan, wherever it was, and trying to really implement them things that I was learning in me, but also if the lads were asking what's Roy Keane like, blah blah blah, we were doing this, whatever it would be. So that was that. I felt like that was my role then, to try and help the group and pass on that knowledge and information, because you know, at the end of the day, you're sitting there, you're training with elite athletes 24/7 for 10 days. You need to be thick and completely ignorant if it doesn't make you a better player and improve as a professional, you know.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Great answer.
It's a fantastic answer. Mr. Stuart Campbell asks...
my old man, Cav. My old man, just don't listen to him here. What's he got?
He says, the government bailed out the rugby league clubs. Don't you think they should have done the same to the lower league clubs in football, as surely some of those might go out of business?
Sorry, does that title on the left-hand side above your head says Football Show? Does it?
It does, yeah.
It does, yeah.
Yeah, so tell him that.
No, but to be fair though, do you know something though, right? I'll give you a quick story on this, right? When COVID first happened, and whoever the justice or the one of the ministers in the government said, I can't remember his name now, but he went after footballers.
Yeah.
With the money they had, and why didn't they invest in this, and why didn't they get
Hancock
the equipment? It was Hancock. That's what it was. And what he didn't know was Jordan Henderson. So there's a lad up here where I live who basically asked, could I get a number for Jordan Henderson? This fella has a company that he wants to help with sanitisation, with masks, with gowns, and with all sorts of stuff. So basically, Jordan was in the process of liaising with the government and the Premier League, and he got all the captains to contribute whatever they wanted to donate. So I got in contact with Jordan, and the work that fella has done it's nothing short of remarkable. And I think what happened as COVID went on, and footballers, the majority, I would say 99.9% of footballers donate to charities anyway, and do their own bits, whether it be going to hospitals or whether it be going to food banks or whatever it is. And they done far more for the country than any of the government did.
Yeah.
And I just thought the easiest thing in the world was to attack footballers, but yeah, you know, they don't come to the backup of them like the League One and League Two clubs. And at the end, God knows what the world's going to look like in 2 or 3 months' time or 4 months' time. But I do definitely think there will be 1 or 2 more, or 4 or 5 more league clubs that won't be able to exist.
Yeah, I don't think, just going on your point there, Cav, I don't think people give footballers enough credit. You know what I mean? The first to jump down Raheem Sterling's throat for doing something bad, getting a tattoo what he shouldn't have got, and he regrets doing it. But at the same time, he gives to school children. He pays for thousands of tickets to come watch England and Man City, and he gives left, right, and centre. But none of that's in the paper. It's just something what annoys me.
The time they give up as well. The amount of time that they give up for free to go to hospitals and visit fans and do sign-ins and all these different things. People are quick to jump on footballers' backs, but those lower league clubs, 100%, there'll be a few which go out of business because they depend solely on match day tickets, merchandise, food, and without that, they're stuffed. Unless they've got a rich owner like Salford City.
Well, so you use Kavs' ex-club as Carlisle United. You know what I mean. Been to Brunton Park a few times yourself as a player and watching games, and you know what I mean. They rely on supporters turning up week in week out. It's a club in the middle of nowhere. You know what I mean. They haven't got a club where you know what I mean, anywhere near them really. You know what I mean. In terms of they've got Boro, which is probably one of the closest now who's been promoted, but. It's just, you know what I mean. I just severely hope that all these football clubs can survive somehow without supporters up to. Well, it sounds like Christmas, but hopefully sooner rather than later.
Yeah, please go.
Hopefully some local businesses, or you'd like to think the FA and people like these would step in and try and help, but I don't think so. Okay, last couple. Stefan Schuyler says, Cav, did you have a League of Ireland team that you cheered on as a child?
Shamrock Rovers.
There you go.
Okay.
Let's have a look. We've had that question. Someone asked it again. They want to know our score predictions for Cardiff versus Charlton tomorrow. So, Cav, you go first.
I got 2-0.
I'll go 3-0. I think Charlton have won 2 out of 2. I think they'll probably do a bad performance and a bad result.
I'll go 3-1 to the mighty Cardiff City.
And as well, Lee Boyer might drop my bottle if Mehmet gets a little bit of a conversation with him before the game.
Well, that's it. He might have a little word after the bombs he dropped in the Mehmet Darwin's podcast. And I'm going to pick one random question to finish. Let's have a quick look. And we will go with Warren Lewis says, what is your best memory playing for Cardiff? Which match did you prefer also, if you had to pick, when we beat the Jacks 1-0 or your free kick versus Leeds?
Well, beating the Jacks 1-0 was in the Welsh Cup final, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But it was a lovely game. We got beaten by Stoke. Nobody wanted to be there. The anticlimax of the season was upon us. Yeah, it was a good free kick, but it didn't really mean anything. So no. So the Leeds game, yeah, it'd have to be the Leeds game. But if you had to give me one day over again from my time at Cardiff, it'd be the playoff game, obviously.
Yeah. And I'd lied. I'm going to do one more question because I think this kind of rounds everything off nicely. Jack Taylor asks, managerial career, Cav, is this something that you'd like to get back into?
Cardiff City.
Manager, Graham Kavanagh.
To be honest, the answer in an ideal world would be yes. The realisation of that answer is probably unrealistic. Because the statistics say that the first-time managers who so-called fail don't get a second chance. I read a thing ages ago about Harry Bassett, who I didn't know but was manager of Watford before he became manager of Sheffield United and had such an illustrious career, 10 years. But he so-called failed, if you like. And the only way you actually get better is by doing the job, learning from it, looking at experiences, where you can gain, where you can improve. And that, as I say, that 12 months I had at Carlisle was the most learning I've ever done about myself, about management. So would I like to do it again? I'd like to have a go at it again, but it would have to be on my terms, in a position that I know I can make a difference. And if I couldn't, well, then I wouldn't take the opportunity.
Good answer.
James says, do the Ayatollah. We weren't going to get away without that one.
Do it every week.
And yeah, I think that's about it for this evening, guys. The audio version of this show and all the other shows is available in usual podcasting apps and platforms. It'll be available in the morning. If you live in the Boro area, it's on what's the channel called, Andy? I always forget.
Red Army TV.
And it's on a Tuesday night, I believe.
Tuesday and a Saturday now. It's on twice.
Oh, and a Saturday, yes. Yeah. That's what I like to see. So that'll be out it's on Apple, iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, all those good places. And of course, you can watch the video replay on Periscope, Twitter, YouTube, and the like. Subscribe on youtube.com/Ace Podcast Nation. Follow facebook.com/Ace Cast Nation. And you can follow the show's social medias at A.C.E Footy Show everywhere. Give the show a follow. And that's where we tend to talk the football and all the upcoming guests. We will be announcing the new guest, or next Monday's guest, probably Wednesday, mate, is it?
Yeah, Tuesday, Wednesday, yeah. But we on that note, we've got some amazing guests coming up. Today's been an amazing show, but we've got some also equally amazing people coming up. So yeah, just some really interesting things coming up.
Am I allowed to give a hint about the 13th of July or not?
You can say what you want. You can say what you want.
For former England international. Incredible.
Premier League.
And my wife will tell you I'm terrible at keeping secrets and I'm terrible at lying. So I'm not going to say anything else because I'll just end up saying it, and that's it then. But I tell you what, actually, next week's guest is going to be fascinating, mate. Real interesting conversation. It's going to be a complete change of pace, and I'm really looking forward to it. However, today I've been like a kid in a sweet shop.
Super.
Not just got the Andy Campbell, who gave me the best night of my life when he scored at the Millennium Stadium, and the skipper. What better way to spend your Monday night than talking to two Cardiff legends? Lucky boy I am. Thank you to everyone who's joined us. Thank you to everyone who's have commented and everything, shared, liked, and of course all the people who download after the fact. Graham, it's been an absolute honour. Thank you for joining
thanks
us.
for coming. Yeah, spot on, Kav. Really appreciate it.
No problem whatsoever.
Should see some of the guesses in the comments.
Seen him.
Jay Shearer, Jay Bothroyd, Paul Merson, all of them. They're all coming on. Same show. It's going to be a round table. No, thank you guys. Thank you, Kav. Thank you, Campbell. It's been my honour, my privilege. And we'll see you live Friday, 7 o'clock for the Andy Campbell Championship show. It's going to be a cracker. And, of course, we've got about 1 million podcasts out on various things this week as well. If you like cricket, MMA, what else was there? Comedy, wrestling, whatever you want. There's shows for everyone. Cheers, guys. See you next week. We'll see you Friday.
See you, fellas. Take care, thanks.
It's Andy Campbell.